Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Leeann from Human Dynamic, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live series, Leading with Purpose. In Human Dynamic, our mission is to develop leaders, build teams, and transform organizations. And this afternoon, we are one step closer to championing this mission. And joining us this afternoon, partnering with us, is the wonderful Nicole Quiogue Golloso. So welcome, Nicole.
Hello. Hi everyone. Hi Leeann. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Nicole. But before I officially throw the questions that I've been waiting so long to ask you, Nicole, let me officially introduce you so the participants get to know you. So, Nicole Quiogue Golloso graduated cum laude with a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology. She has over 10 years combined experience in the fields of HR, marketing, and the academy. She started her career in the telco industry before moving to the world of marketing and advertising, where she worked her way up for the last 5 years. Currently, she is the Director of Human Resources and Corporate Communications for Singapore and Hong Kong of McCann World Group, a leading global marketing network. Her core expertise is in culture building, DEI, employee experience, talent and organizational development, performance management, learning and development, and talent acquisition. Helping people is her passion and calling, apart from being a career and life mentor to different individuals. She likewise advocates for mental health, career and personal development, and modern yet creative and genuine HR approaches through various in person and online platforms. This has led her to be recognized as one of the top 100 Filipinos to be followed on LinkedIn in 2020. So, again, welcome, Nicole, to our LinkedIn Live series, Leading with Purpose. I'm very excited to have you since I've been seeing you on LinkedIn with such strong, authentic voice, Nicole. So, welcome. Hello, Nicole. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm good. I'm freezing. I'm in the office, but like it's like so cold. But I'm excited to, to be part of this. So like, thank you, Human Dynamic and Leeann, for arranging and organizing this.
Yes, so we really wanted to pick your brains and your thoughts, Nicole. Our first question, Nicole. So we really want to know, what does communicating with influence look like for you?
Like for me, when you say communicating with influence, I think this is when leaders or individuals at that are able to drive action and change without using force, fear, or
Mhm.
even manipulation. It's when you're able to persuade or inspire others also to do or realize something, coming from your perspective, even if they have like a different point of view, not just because you are a person of power, but because they actually believe in what you are saying or communicating. Like maybe just to illustrate that, like for example, if you have a new program in your offices, for instance, and you want people to volunteer in leading it and executing or planning the program, someone who's able to communicate with influence would be able to get the buy-in or
Mhm.
interest of people to take part in it without enforcing or mandating it. By simply like as simple as them clearly stating what do they want to happen, what is it for, why do they need it, or what is the impact of that project, for example, towards the people, the organization, or their other stakeholders. So I think that's what communicating with influence is.
Yes, I think that's really important, the buy-in that you mentioned, Nicole. But I believe for some leaders, it's quite difficult to really
Yeah.
have their team members get in with them and have that buy-in to be on the same page as you as leaders. So how do you think you're able to slowly get that buy-in in your experience from your team members?
feel like I think number one really would be a sense of trust.
Mhm.
When you're able to build trust, especially as leaders in an organization, getting that buy-in comes out naturally. Like when they know that you're walking the talk, when they
Mhm.
actually see that the message that you're telling them, and when you're completely transparent with the things that you're telling your people, then you're able to drive action, then you're able to get that buy-in also from your people. I mean, like us, like working in HR, you have so much programs, policies that you're implementing on a day-to-day, and like people can get drowned in it. So how do you continue to engage people, right? And I
Mhm.
think it's that when they see what the impact of the actions, the messages that you're telling them is, then like things will follow naturally.
Mhm. Yes, I think what you mentioned about trust, and even if you have a lot of simultaneous programs going on, but then they see and understand the impact and the meaning of these programs, it's all connected and it goes back to the trust that you were
Yeah.
mentioning. Okay. Is that one of the factors that you would say that contribute to leaders being able to communicate with purpose and communicating strategically?
Yeah, I think that's one. But apart from the sense of trust, right, that you build, I think other factors that would contribute to, as you say, strategic and purposeful communication, right, is number one, having clear objectives, goals, and purpose. You have to be able to clearly define from the get go what is it that you want to happen and why.
Mhm.
Another is, when you communicate something, you have to know who your audience is. You have to actually profile who you're talking to, and what are they looking for, what are
Mhm.
they concerned about, even what kind of communication style do these people respond to best. Like when you how you talk to board members, for instance, is different from how you would communicate to your junior and mid-level staff, right? So you have to really get to know, like especially if it's a prepared say speech or prepared messaging, you have to
Mhm.
know your audience. Apart from that, I think when, where, and how you deliver a message, the
Mhm.
timing, even the channels. Like, do you communicate it via email? Do you communicate things
Right.
during a town hall, an in-person town hall, or online? Because that can affect how people respond to you as well. So it's really like the timing. And lastly, I think preparation. It establishes your credibility also, your readiness to certain things. Preparing also enables you to anticipate questions, or how will like you to actually think about what are how will my audience possibly respond to me, what questions will
Mhm.
they be asking me afterwards, right? So when you plan ahead, you are able to strategize well how you'd be able to get into the desired outcome that you want.
Mhm. Yeah. I think I like how you started with having a clear purpose and clear set of objectives in mind, Nicole. And I agree also with what you said about knowing who your audience is and the format of the
Yeah.
interaction. What came to mind was often the most requested sessions for us is how do we communicate better or deal better with a workforce that is multi-generational and in
Yeah.
a hybrid format, Nicole. Do you have any key tips or something that we should keep in mind if we communicate in such platform to a diverse workforce?
I think for me, this is just something that works for me. It may not be true for everybody. I work in a very diverse organization, like not just in terms of age and gender, but even in terms of nationality. To me, what works is being yourself. Like being as sincere and as genuine as you can be. whenever I communicate something, especially if it's serious, like how do I tell this to a friend? Like I would think about that. Like how would I tell this to a friend that I genuinely care about? And then I talk to people in a more conversational manner because that's somehow generic in a way. But again, this works for me. Like I think in trainings that can be too, like thinking about, oh, like is the sense of humor you going to be on the same wavelength? That can be tricky. But I think that it's like, yeah, being yourself, keeping yourself in check also. Like I would also say that if you have time to practice certain things, right, like your presentations or your trainings, try to practice it in front of a sample size from like your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Then let them, get them to give you some feedback about how you're presenting. Is it clear to them? Is it too simple or too difficult or complex?
Yeah. I think that's what I admire about you, Nicole, how you are communicating with such authenticity and with such sincerity. I feel that it's something that people feel and get as an impression, right? When they
Thank
sense that
you.
you're genuine as a person. Okay. So those are the factors, Nicole. But what would you say would be the common challenges you think that leaders experience when they communicate as strategic and as purposeful?
I think connected also to what have I've been saying earlier. I think number one is jumping on the what without communicating the why. You just tell them, oh, this is what you have to do, but they don't really know what is it for. Why am I doing this? Next is lacking sincerity, as I've mentioned, and even empathy. Not empathizing with your audience, not building trust
Mhm.
and rapport. I think like as leaders, sometimes we over filter things as well.
Mhm.
That when there's a lack of transparency, like where there are times that by over filtering, we're also not able to really give full context or details on the
Mhm.
messages that we're giving. And that can be our downfall sometimes, right? Like, I think it's an illusion when you say, oh, like I've already talked to our people. I've had these town halls, but are you able to really get your message across during these
Mhm.
town halls? And you're not just blabbing things that people don't
Mhm.
really resonate with. I think in relation to that, having like a misalignment on your messages and your actions,
Mhm.
consistency, I would say, is key. Also in building trust, like mentioned earlier, right? So when you do not walk the talk, that affects how people perceive you to be. There, sorry, this is a lot. But maybe like also not listening when you're having a one-sided conversation with yourself. Mostly I don't think that's
Mhm.
communicating, right? When it's not two-way, when it's all about you and you.
Mhm.
um, and then, yeah, like I think connected to that, having a one-way conversation is not really understanding or misreading the needs of your audience, the people that you're
Mhm.
talking. Maybe lastly is assuming that everyone understands
Mhm.
everything that you're saying, and then not being open to acknowledging that maybe they don't really see your point. And I think like that can be a common challenge among leaders, both the seasoned ones and your upcoming leaders as well.
How do you get that self check, Nicole, that you're communicating and you want to make sure that the other person, whether regardless of the background, the seniority, they are understanding that you are on the same page.
I think it depends on the situation, but asking for feedback, like I would always say this, like when you're communicating something or when someone is talking to you at that, like try to repeat what the other person said in your own words.
Mhm.
Like see if you have a common understanding, like by simply saying, oh, like this is what I heard from you, did I understand it correctly? You try to dissect what the people you're talking to are telling you before you respond to anything. Yeah, and
Mhm.
then like when you ask for feedback, you have to take it seriously. I think you shouldn't be defensive when
Mhm.
people say that, oh, like this is not how I understood it, or when people say, no, I don't think the message is that clear, I don't know what you're talking about. Of course, like that's
Mhm.
like a hit at our ego, but if that can make you a better communicator, if that can make you a better leader, then have that mindset that this is also for your own good and for the good of
Mhm.
your stakeholders.
Mhm. Yes, I think that's quite difficult. That specific part on being accepting of feedback. Because, for example, for some leaders, if they are much senior than the team member, it might be quite hard to accept that feedback from that person. What about goal balancing transparency with over communication? Meaning, how do we stay transparent, but at the same time, we do not over communicate things about the business that should not be um, divulged or communicated?
I think that's when strategy comes in, right? Like when you have to communicate something, like say, like one example that I would give, like I think in last year when we wanted to be more transparent on, say, the status of our business. Of course, like the details of our financials, you can't always say that to everybody. So how do you become creative at it? Like what we did was showing like smiley faces, or like a green, red, and yellow on certain aspects of our
Mhm.
business, to tell them that this is where we're at, this is we where we're at against our target. So you can get
Mhm.
creative at it. Like, so you have to
Mhm.
identify among your leadership team, what kind of information is really a no-no.
Mhm.
What do we want to communicate? Like when your people would tell you, oh, I don't have so much visibility on, say, how we're getting paid, how our salaries are being reviewed,
Mhm.
then try to make a way to be transparent that you don't compromise your compliances and your policies. I mean, that's hard, but I think even like I'm very manual sometimes, but I would always do like an Excel sheet, a side by side. Okay, these are the things that I need to say. These are
Mhm.
the things that I can and cannot say in relation to to these messages. So you can do that as well. But again, it's a case to case basis. There's
Right.
no one size fits all
Mhm.
across organizations.
Mhm. It's having that black and white agreement on the things that you can communicate and things that should be withheld. I like what you said about the creativity, the use of
Yeah.
creativity in communication, Nicole. So is that something that you prioritize as a leader whenever you communicate?
Yes. I think nowadays what's important for a lot of organizations is really being people centric. So like
Mm-hmm.
I said, right, like you have to know like your audience, who you're talking to, and like what do they need, what are they asking for, and when you have that in mind, when it's people first, like, and more than the numbers, which is quite tempting for business leaders. I think that you can be more purposeful in how you manage and handle your people.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said about emphasizing people centric, Nicole, because that's quite difficult to balance with the business side of things. But then you get to step back and realize that at the middle of the business or at the top of the business is the people, right?
Yeah. And that's,
Great.
like your people is your best asset. Your
Mhm.
business will not be running without your people. Yes, we do have AI coming into play, but if you really think about it, I personally believe that it wouldn't be like a 100 AI takeover. at the end of the day, you still need people to run things. You still
I
need
agree.
people to, to make your businesses survive. And if you don't take care of them, then I think that's when, the numbers start to dip as well, right?
I agree. Do you think that's one other challenge that we should consider as business leaders? The role of AI and its possible hindrance to us communicating with meaning, with purpose.
I think it's a yes and no. I wouldn't say it's a challenge, but I think it's how you look at it. If you will be using AI to optimize your work, it's more of to help make things more efficient. If you're going to use AI to make things better and not make it like not be fully dependent on it, then I don't think it would be a challenge. I think it's really more of the lack of knowing that is a challenge now. It's new. It's something that we're just starting to get educated on. So
Right.
yeah, so I think like as long as we're careful about it and how we use it,
Mhm.
it might not necessarily be a problem.
Right. That if we should use it, it should be like a complementary to our
Yeah.
essential skills or to the skills that we already have.
Yeah, like it's like a managed risk also, right? So
Mm.
you have to see like what are the pros and cons. Like how do you
Mm.
also tell your people how to use it? Like educating your people to how to properly use AI in their day to day work, that you don't end up plagiarizing things or communicating things that are not factual.
Mhm. So it's being careful with its use. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
What about in general, Nicole, in thinking about communicating as business leaders, making sure that we communicate with purpose and with influence, and that is also meaningful to the team members or to the organization. Do you think that there are other challenges that we might have missed, and how should we address this challenge?
I think like the main challenges I've already talked about. But when it comes to addressing the challenge, maybe I'll just like reiterate also like things that I've said earlier. I think one is like really empathizing and understanding your audience, seeking for feedback, also adapting different communication strategies based on the situation and the need. Like I mentioned, it's not a one size fits all. So you have to learn to navigate your, how you communicate with others. You also have to also practice how do you become concise. How do you
Mhm.
simplify your messaging every time? Will someone who's not experienced understand what you're saying? It's also, I think, a challenge for us maybe that sometimes we want to sound smart all the time, that we want to say so much jargons. You have to say big words without really much essence.
Mm.
So keeping yourself in check, and of course like being open-minded all the time, with the things that are happening around you or how your audience would respond to you. Um, and I think working on your self-awareness can
Mhm.
also be helpful, keeping
Mhm.
your unconscious biases in check.
Mhm.
Like personally, whenever I end my day, I would always try to assess myself, like, what did I say today to the people
Mhm.
around me? Was there something that I said that may have been,
Mhm.
perceived the wrong way, or understood like the wrong way? How do I also make sure that I continuously conscious with inclusion with my the things that I say. Like one challenge, or like one exercise that I made my team do, that would help and in their communication style is that like even with their emails, okay, like when you email someone or when you respond to an inquiry, for instance, of someone, try to copy and paste in an Excel sheet your
Mhm.
responses. And then when you're already relaxed for the day, try to read the responses that you've given them. If you were the person reading that, if you were the receiver, what would you feel with the way you responded to me? And then from that, like coming from that insight, once you start to try to once you analyze, try to rewrite the message, even if you don't have to send that to the other person, but it gives you an insight on your trend with how you talk to people. And I think when in time, through experience, you become better at communicating things, you become more diplomatic,
Mm.
um, and yeah, and inclusive in your communication.
Responses. Mhm.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, Nicole, is the importance of being able to be truly self aware in the words that we say, but also in the way that we compose our messages, whether it's in written format or in an oral format. I think what you mentioned about consistently keeping yourself in check is truly important, especially as leaders, wherein you get bogged down by so many things all at the same time. It's so easy to communicate mindlessly and not be in check with your true voice as an
Yeah.
individual. I have so much questions I want to ask, Nicole,
Go
but
ahead.
just to maximize the time left that we have, Nicole, how else do you think can we elevate our communication skills as leaders aside from building that trust, aside from that empathy, being in tune with our truth, being authentic and sincere? Anything else that you think we should keep in mind?
I think like adding is believing in the things that you're saying also. The confidence in the things that you're saying also helps build that credibility and trust that I was telling, and like being open to learning, being open to accepting your mistakes too, being
Mhm.
open to accepting that not everything we say, not everything we do can be right or can be taken as the way that we envision it to be. So I think if we want, to improve our communication skills, I think a lot have been said earlier already, but like
Mhm.
those are things that you may also want to look into.
Mhm. I agree. So it's believing about what you are saying, having that being grounded, rather, being
Yeah.
grounded in your truth and being able to
Yes.
communicate it as truthfully as possible. For my last question, Nicole, I know that I wasn't able to share this previously, but now that you're here, I wanted to ask this question. What do you think about for those business leaders who haven't found their true voice yet? Meaning they are clear with their business goals, but then as an individual, they haven't quite tuned in with their authentic self and haven't found their true voice yet.
Sorry. The question is, what advice can you give to people who have not yet found their true
The
and
true
authentic
voice,
self?
yes, and authentic self as business leaders. And so I imagine they might be challenged in communicating with such sincerity and genuineness.
I think having a mentor or having a confidant, like a friend or someone you trust, can help in letting you analyze or realize what your authentic self is. Like I think that also builds self awareness. Like if you can find someone who you feel like, oh, like this is the type of person, you don't need to be a copy, like a clone of this person, but this is someone that I look up to. Maybe reach out to them. Like, I think we have to put our ego aside as leaders, that we know everything, we're good at everything already, and you find someone who you feel can help you, get to where you want to be. Maybe like even on LinkedIn, right? You do have a lot of coaches, a lot of other leaders who have already found their voice. Reach out to them, like ask them for advice, get mentorship, even informal coffee sessions. um, like having that mindset, that growth mindset, that you can still continue to learn no matter how experienced you are. And then, like, use those insights. At the same time, I think I personally would always write down my strengths, my weaknesses, as much as possible. Like, I would tell this to my students, even to professionals also that I am mentoring, that like, for you to also build that self-awareness, you have to know what is it that you have. So, like, when on your downtime, write down, okay, what do I think are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the things that the things that interest me? What are the things that I can talk about with gusto? Things that I am an expert on. Like, sometimes even writing it down, you may know it already, but we sometimes, like, in a world filled with so much information, and we're so drowned in our day to day, we forget, like, what is my essence. And then when you write those downs, I would take, what are my top three in all this, what's my top three strengths, what are my top three weaknesses that I want to work on, what are the top three things that I want to talk about more, or that I would have more knowledge on, that I can share with other people. So I think that helps you, in identifying your voice, identifying your personal brand as well.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Nicole. That's such a great advice. I hear what you're saying about the importance of having that mentor or that coach, having those learning opportunities with people that might surprise you, right? That
Yeah.
you can learn so much from, and the importance of being able to sit and reflect on your own strengths and weaknesses. I think these are great concrete steps that anyone can do, Nicole. So thank you so much for sharing all these things with us. I hope that our participants are also able to learn as much as I have learned, Nicole. Any last few words you would like to share, Nicole, before we end today's session?
I think I always share this in all my talks. My mantra in life is, like, every day in every way I will get better and better. Like, I
Mm.
always tell that to people, that the things that you're doing, no matter how small, would really affects how you build your character, affects how you build your expertise, and you shouldn't take it for granted. Sometimes the things that we're doing, even just attending sessions like this, we take it for granted, but we don't realize that when the right time comes, we're able to use these skills. We're able to use the things, or the experiences that we've acquired over the years, in making us a better individual. So just keep that in mind. Let's be better leaders. Let's be better human beings. Like, being people centric, be a person that you also want to be associated with. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That is very much hope filled and very inspiring.